Hey guys, and welcome back to Retro 9000, the channel where we like retro stuff. I mean, that's basically all it is. Today, I just wanted to share this with you guys. I've been trying to start something up here where I just kind of take a closer look at some of the retro video games that I have in my collection and really take some time to appreciate the artwork on the front and the back of the box and the instruction booklets, the things that you honestly don't get a lot of anymore. And today we're looking at something called The Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition, which if you weren't a gamer during the GameCube era, this was around 2002, 2003, you might not have ever seen this or heard of it. And as you can see here, it is, I'll bring this up to the camera a little closer here, it is not for resale, so chances are you didn't buy it either. Unless you got it like super black market bootleg. I'm looking at you, Dave. I should... But my co-host's name is Dave. He didn't do that. But I do hope that if someone's watching and their name Dave, like you're like freaking out a little bit. But this was such a cool piece of game demo for that era. I remember so specifically, I came into school one day and there was a girl in my class who brought this in. And at the time, I was a huge Ocarina of Time fan. And Ocarina of Time, as you'll see in a minute, is actually included on this disc. And I was such a huge Ocarina of Time fan, and I wanted an opportunity to play it on GameCube. I thought this promotional disc was so cool. And this was actually bundled with certain GameCube consoles. And I already had a GameCube at this point, so I wasn't going to get it from that. According to the Zelda fandom wiki, the collection could also be obtained by subscribing or renewing a subscription to Nintendo Power. So yeah, Nintendo Power could be the way to go. But she walked in with this, and all I wanted to do was, buy it from her. And I think I actually asked her, I'm like, hey, like, what would you charge me for that? It was not for sale. Sarah, if you're watching this, I'm still a little mad. Because, like, she wasn't even a gamer. I don't even think she was a gamer. I think she just, like, had a game, or, like, her one of her brothers had a GameCube or something, and she got this and just was rubbing it in our faces. Anyway, I digress. This thing was sweet. This was what a lot of people were kind of vying for because it was so hard to come across. And this was kind of before the time of video game collecting on eBay was big. And so it was hard to get a copy of this. I quite honestly don't remember how I got a copy of this. I think I might have bought it on eBay before the pandemic, before the big collection boom sort of happened. Because right now, like if you get a sealed one of these on eBay, you're looking at like $400. Opened like this is still $200. The price doesn't matter. It's just, it's a reflection of kind of how rare this thing is at this point. But without further ado, let's take a look at the back of the box, shall we? So I think this is so cool. So if you're just, if you have this video on in the background, I'll kind of describe a little bit what we're looking at. There's this really, really cool artwork in the background that's kind of obscured. It's grayed out and obscured. It's Hyrule Castle. Looks like it could be from Wind Waker or potentially artwork from Ocarina of Time, but it's kind of obscured, grayed out. It has this like paper texture up here on the top, which I don't know. I miss when the backs of video games looked like this. There's so much detail. I honestly can't get enough of it. Up at the top, I thought this was kind of a trip down memory lane. We see that it says one player. Yeah, that's pretty standard. Memory card uses up to 36 blocks. And I just, in a day and age now where everything is measured in gigabytes, I just think it's kind of adorable, Nintendo's little way of having their own storage. 36 blocks, 36 units of memory. And also it's progressive scan compatible because this was during the CRT era, baby. Let's go. And of course, for the official Nintendo Power Player's Guide, it's available at your nearest retailer or at www.nintendo.com. So right up at the top here, we have the greatest legend in gaming, the Ultimate Zelda Collection. This did contain 4 games, kind of 4.5 if you want to count the demo, but we'll get there. It contained The Legend of Zelda, the OG, which underneath says, play the game that launched the legend with an innovative and unique gameplay system, remarkably deep puzzle solving. Remarkably deep puzzle solving, and an epic score, the appeal of this groundbreaking classic is still going strong. And I won't have to read all these. I mean, you guys can kind of see some of that for yourself there. The next one up on the list is Zelda II, The Adventure of Link. Then we have The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, which, let's be real, that's why I was here for it. And The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. This was, just for some context, This disc came out in 2003, November 17th, 2003 in America, which really wasn't too terribly long. We're only looking a few years after Majora's Mask came out. So to have Majora's Mask available on this new hardware in a disc form, packaged in with Ocarina of Time and a couple of these other older games, this was about a year after The Wind Waker came out. I believe The Wind Waker came out in 2002, if I'm not mistaken. I just looked. I was not mistaken. It was December 2002. So the demo on here, it is very interesting to me for that reason, because they were showing us this demo for a game that's already been out for a year. Clearly, they were trying to move some. If you weren't around when Zelda the Wind Waker was released, it was very, very mixed reception. People saw a tech demo long before the game came out that showed this really kind of gritty, dark, almost like Ocarina of Time 2.0 looking type footage. And then we ended up with Toon Link, which I loved. I mean, I was about 12 at the time it came out, and I thought it looked great. I really enjoyed playing it, but a lot of people weren't nuts about it. So my guess is that because of that, they probably weren't able to sell as many units. I'm speculating. I don't know the history there. If you do know, please leave a comment and let me know, because I'm a retro game lover, not a retro game historian. But I do love also how it's like the official Wind Waker logo with like a really cool 3D rendering of the King of Red Lions, but then you just get like Toon Link. I don't know why you wouldn't just throw in the actual 3D render. I don't know. I'm not a designer by nature. But I honestly love this back art because it's not as in-depth as we see on a lot of video games from that era. It doesn't have like its own sort of art direction in big air quotes. It's more just kind of showing you exactly what you're getting, which for a promotional disc, I get it. Like, you're not going to spend a lot of time designing something that's literally just for promo. That's a weird sentence. If it's marketing, you're going to spend a lot of time. But this is something that you would get packed in with your GameCube. So they're already buying the GameCube. They're not really going to probably be reading a lot of this, which makes the instruction booklet, in my mind, really, really interesting. So we'll pop this bad boy open. Of course, we have the disc itself here, which is also a really cool design. Just it's all kind of blacked out, and just the Legend of Zelda moniker up here is red. I think that looks pretty slick. Let me straighten that out for the camera a little bit. Have some aesthetic freaking instinct here, Zachary. So let's start with the instruction booklet here. Take it out tenderly so as to not destroy the pages. There's probably a video game collector out there freaking out right now because I'm probably not handling this properly. It's okay. I just like old games. I'm not a collector. I just like old things. It's okay. You're okay. Anyway, I just wanted to share some of this stuff with you, this instruction booklet, because again, I don't think you get a lot of this detail in modern games. Look at all those cautions. But I thought this was funny too. When I opened this up, there's this 3D rendering of the Master Sword. It looks like from Ocarina of Time, and it's like old school 3D. I don't know. Trying not to get like the light reflection in there, but it's like old school 3D, like Toy Story era 3D, where they didn't quite have it figured out. So there's a lot of detail, but like it's as much as they could do for the time, which is really just kind of adorable. And as we go into it, they have kind of like the getting started, which, a lot of the instruction booklets had this at the time. But then they go into these descriptions of the games, which I thought were really interesting and kind of cool. As someone who's played every Zelda game pretty much, I'm sure I've missed a couple here or there, but I haven't seen these descriptions elsewhere. Not saying they're not elsewhere. I had just never seen them elsewhere before this. So you get these cool descriptions, and they get longer, right? Like the first one is such a simple game. It's literally a one-pager. Then we get to Zelda II, Adventure of Link, and we have a couple pages explaining what's going on, explaining the magic system. Ocarina of Time, which, again, I freaking love that image of like Ganondorf in the background fighting off Link. I think that's so cool. But again, the controls also got a lot more complicated, so there's a lot more to figure out there. It makes sense to have the instruction guide, I guess, is what I'm getting at. Fairies and L targeting. Quick note on L targeting, if you guys didn't know this. Apparently, rumor has it, legend has it, that Shigeru Miyamoto went to a play of some kind. So he went to the theater, and there was like an action scene in which somebody had like a grapple, and I'm probably messing up some of the details, but it was something akin to a grapple that they threw at someone, and the person was holding on to it, and they just sort of circled each other with the rope between them. And apparently this is what led to him having the idea for the Z targeting system. And there are some examples of a similar-ish targeting system being in play before Ocarina of Time, so sometimes this is disputed, but that's just a little fun, piece of information. And there's like even this cool little diagram here that shows what that targeting system does. They call it L targeting here because it's on the GameCube controller, which was L, not Z. But yeah, it's just kind of cool because now you see that in so many games. Like almost any modern game has some kind of essentially a Z targeting lock-on system, and that was sort of spawned from Zelda Ocarina of Time. Of course, you got some great artwork from Ocarina of Time in here. Then we get into Majora's Mask. Here's the thing with Majora's Mask. You needed a strategy guide to beat that game. I don't care what you say. I don't care if, I've beaten it 100 times. Yeah, you need a strategy guide if you want to beat it fully. There was the Bomber's Notebook inside of it, which is cool, but for me, that was just not enough. It was always like a little bit vague. It didn't really explain how to use it. A big fan of a strategy guide when it comes to Majora's Mask. But I just wanted to share kind of what this instruction booklet looked like with you guys. I just thought this was so neat. And there's the Bomber's Notebook that I was telling you about. But like again, like what are you supposed to make of that? That's nothing. You just don't. But in case you needed to know, that's the symbol. This symbol will be added after you receive a mask from someone. I do think it's interesting that the margins on this, like this feels rushed in this instruction booklet, and maybe it is just because it was a promo disc, but like there's like overlap between the images and the words here, and like the spacing's a little off, and you see that on the back as well. Like the spacing is really tight in ways that it just wouldn't be in kind of modern design. So I don't know if that was just a byproduct of it, having to be rushed or moving too quickly or what, but an interesting thing to note regardless. Now, this was cool. So this was basically saying you could subscribe to Nintendo Power and get a free player's guide for this collector's edition. I was a huge Nintendo Power fan. I had Nintendo Power. I think I had a subscription to a couple gaming magazines at the time, and I always loved Nintendo Power. It was always the one I looked the most forward to. Then, of course, you got some credits in there. There's a Zac in there. I never see anybody with their name spelled like that for like another Zac. Zac's the world unite. And then, of course, there's just this, this was just like the special offer. This is essentially what we saw on the last page of the book here. But I did think this was kind of fun too. As if you weren't already invested here, the latest industry news. We got the hottest codes. We got extensive reviews. You guys remember codes? Shit was awesome. And again, if you want a real throwback, there's actually a thing in here for you to cut out and mail in that you just write your credit card number on. And that's just, you just entrust it to the postal service and hope it gets there. And I did want to share the disc with you guys a little bit just so you can get a nice close look at that. I honestly just love the colors on this, or I guess the lack of color on this. Kind of like a Sin City vibe going on with the just kind of highlighting the reds. But for how dark Majora's Mask is, and Ocarina of Time was kind of becoming this darker game, I think it's a cool design choice. But if I'm being realistic, chances are it's less of a design choice and was more of a cost-saving measure. Because again, this was a promo disc. They probably didn't want to spend a ton of money. Instead, they just threw, basically the ROMs for these games on this disc and called it good. A couple things to note and kind of mention here as we're going through. And again, this is going back to that Zelda fandom wiki. So thank you to all the contributors over there. I wanted to share a few things that I found in here, which was apparently there were some issues with this. So there were some issues with like the rumble feature on Majora's Mask causing the game to freeze. There were some sound, quote unquote, sound irregularities, even down to things like graphics, like some blurs loading weird or disappearing entirely. And also worth noting that the demo of Wind Waker that came with this was only a 20-minute demo, but it did include a section for a dungeon, a section for the stealth mode, and an island, which I believe is Windfall Island, but I haven't looked up footage for that, so don't quote me on that. But that's it for this video, you guys. I just wanted to take a little walk down memory lane. I figure if I looked at this and got all of the nostalgia feels, that maybe you guys would get some of that as well, and I hope you did, because this was a huge walk down memory lane. And Sarah, if you're watching this, you know what? I got my copy anyway. I didn't need yours. You weren't even a gamer. I didn't need your copy. I got my own with grown-up money. It's okay. I forgive you. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this type of video, please subscribe and let me know which box art I should be looking at in the next video. I appreciate you guys, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.